Good evening, everyone. Good evening. The notice requirement provided for the open public meeting law has been satisfied. Notice having been properly given, said notice having been transmitted to the Courier News on Tuesday, April 12th, 2022, as well as posting on the City of Plainfield's website. Madam Clerk, can I have a roll call, please?
Council members Briggs Jones.
Present.
Davis.
Present.
Hockaday.
Present.
McKenna.
Present.
Mills Ransom.
Present.
Vice President McCray.
Present.
Council President Gooden.
Present.
All members are present this evening in a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Of course, you know we have some unfinished business this evening. Plainfield Municipal Council will conduct its budget deliberations on the 2022 calendar year municipal operating budget. And the session is scheduled to discuss the Department of Finance, Department of Economic Development, and of course, the Department of Health and Social Services. So I would like the Department of Economic Development, please begin with your budget overview. Thanks for joining us. Director Jackson, the floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'll start with, you often hear us talk about that there is more than $1 billion in private investment in the city of Plainfield, and that is a true statement. Some of our completed projects include the Quinn, Wawa, the Randolph, which is over at the former Muhlenberg Hospital site, the station at Grant, and Elmwood Square. So those are all projects that have been completed that are really fully leased for the most part. So that's important to note as well. The other transit-oriented projects that are underway around the Netherwood train station include 1000 North Avenue, 820 South Avenue. It's nearly complete as I look at that project on South Avenue. 803 South Avenue, 829 South Avenue, and 1369 South Avenue, which is adjacent to the Dairy Queen. So those are projects that are well underway, under construction. We also have on Park Avenue, the new event facility being done at this moment. It's called the Bank on Park, and it's coming along nicely. It was the former PNC Bank, which is right there on the corner of Park Avenue and 2nd Street. Some of the other projects that are breaking ground soon. One is 3rd and Roosevelt. We kept having to change the date, but that particular project is ready to start. It's right behind Union County College. And as a matter of fact, the developer is interested in developing the whole 3rd Street between Roosevelt and Richmond. We are also breaking ground on TODD West, which is Moon Builder, Steve Chung's project. Probably the largest project that we've seen to date in Plainfield. Is well over $100 million. It's an entire city block. And it consists of 4 buildings, more than 350 plus residential units, more than 25,000 square feet of retail, a parking garage, as well as a banquet facility and restaurant. So that project will be breaking ground at the end of the month. You'll be getting invitations to that. We also have a small project right across from the train station. It's a city-owned lot that we're selling. It's 181-197 North Avenue. And that will be a 5-story project with retail on the ground floor. And then the other one that's breaking ground soon is the former Fig Tree property. That will be a mixed-use development as well. They've taken down the Fig Tree. Well, they've done the demolition. Now they're doing the site work. So I say all of this to say that the workload for the city staff in the Department of Economic Development has more than doubled, is what I definitely want to explain to everyone. So we increased the staff in the planning division by 1. And I say that because our applications for site plans have doubled in 2021 over 2020. They continue to meet regularly in terms of the planning board. They meet twice a month and those meetings are packed. We have technical review committees prior to the meetings. And again, they've doubled their applications that they're processing. We also last year moved the building and construction known as UCC to the Department of Economic Development. It makes sense to have all under one roof from beginning to when someone turns the key and say they have a certificate of occupancy. And so in doing that, we also, because their workload has dramatically increased, we also took 2 of the sub-co-officials that were part-time and made them full-time. That's the electrical and the plumbing inspector. And I will tell you the revenue, the permit revenue for 2021 was over $900,000. That is pretty significant. They haven't seen that in years in terms of permit revenue. First quarter permit revenue was $481,000. So that's half of what we did last year in its entirety. So we are going to continue to move the work and move it forward. We also created another division within the department so that I would have less direct reports. So we created the Division of Economic Development. And that particular division has been doing all of the business grant support, grant programs, both the UEZ and the Small Business Grant Relief Program. They interface with the SID. They handle all of the UEZ programs and projects, the food truck festivals, things that you're seeing that are things that we need to do as it relates to economic development. They're also putting applications on the website to assist business owners. We also provide technical assistance to business owners. So there are 3 divisions within the department: the planning division, the UCC division, and the economic development division. So I really have 3 direct reports, including my assistant who handles a lot of the financial matters for the department. So the workload is double. We've increased the staff by 1 and moved 2 people to full-time. So we are doing what we need to do. In terms of pilot revenue, for the first time, we're beginning to see pilot revenue in 2022. And so there are 7 projects that are contributing to the pilot revenue in 2022. That's the South 2nd Street Youth Center, the Quinn, the Randolph, the Allen Young Apartments, the Netherwood Village Apartments, the Station at Grant, and Elmwood Gardens. And so this year, we're anticipating annual pilot revenue of $1.5 million versus if we did not do these projects or not have these pilots, we would have gotten a little over 400,000. So over the next 30 years, those same projects, if you look at them for 30 years, we will be, as a result of having pilots, we will get $43.9 million versus $12.1 million. So the pilots are doing what we expect them to do. And that does not include the community benefits that we get associated with these projects. It does not include the revenue from the sale of city property in terms of that. So we are continuing to have an impact on the revenue side. And I think that's important for us to note. And while we're doing all this development, we still stepped up to the plate and did cannabis implementation. Plainfield has become known as the place to come to get advice from other towns, get advice on cannabis. So the CRC, the Cannabis Regulatory Commission, sends them to us to help people navigate that piece. Now, once we know who has a license, who has received licenses, I can anticipate for you at that point, I can give you estimated projections on revenue from cannabis. And so once we know who received a license, I will be able to say what that 2% tax means in terms of their revenue. I will be able to talk about application and licensing fees. So additional revenues will be coming into the city. I spent a great deal of time with the Department of Finance talking about revenue and helping to ensure that we're collecting all that's due us. So I do want everyone to understand cannabis will be a boom. We probably won't see any of that revenue until next year, but it will be there. In terms of retaining and attracting businesses, during COVID in 2020, we did $287,000 in grants to 42 Plainfield businesses. So we did almost $300,000 to assist 42 Plainfield businesses. In terms of what we're doing this year, we're closer to about 400,000. We had $1 million to give away. We went out and we beat the payment for the businesses to come to talk to us. So we've spent about $400,000 on grants to Plainfield businesses in 2022. So we're talking 2021, 2022. We also secured additional UEZ funding, which is a little over 600,000. And so I think we're doing a great job. We also had Landmark Development, which is Frank and Jeannie Curtella, and they own all these nice restaurants throughout the state. They built a culinary school in the city of Plainfield, and they moved from Jersey City to the city of Plainfield. If you have not been by their building over at 537 North Avenue, see me. I will take you in there to show you that particular operation. So I'm open for questions at this point. That completes my remarks. I think we're doing a great job.
Thank you, Director Jackson, for that presentation. We'll move right directly to my council colleagues. I believe Councilwoman Terry Briggs-Jones says she has no questions for Director Jackson.
Just
so,
one.
Just one? Okay, go right ahead. Go right ahead.
First of all, good evening, Director Jackson.
Good evening.
And colleagues, good evening, and constituents of Plainfield. Just one question, and it did come up when you were talking about the monies from the grants and how much it was. How much is left, and what we're going to do with the rest of it?
So there's never any money left when Ron West sits around as the Director of Finance. He takes the money immediately and reappropriate it. So that additional 600,000 is going to go into other city projects. And so we stopped the grant program as of May 1st. And again, we beat the payment to tell people about this grant and and it's not a hard process. It's a very simple application. So we beat the payments to assist people. We also assist, Councilwoman, people with the grants that came out of the state as well. So it just wasn't the money that we made available through our funds, but also through state programs. And there were some that were specific to restaurants that we assist with as well.
Okay,
Okay, thank you. There will be no more questions.
No problem.
thank you, Councilwoman. We'll move right along to Councilwoman Ashley Davis. Councilwoman Davis, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I'm glad you brought up the small business grant. And you said that that 600,000 would be appropriated to other city projects.
Right.
If you or Mr. West could weigh in on what those other city projects are, or what the plans are for that additional $600,000.
I'm gonna defer to Director West.
I can speak on that if you want.
Yeah, we're looking now at what additional initiatives we need to be addressing. We've got things like an elevator at the annex. We've got a number of other capital improvement programs at various building locations, whether you're looking at City Hall Annex in terms of bathrooms, lighting. We've got to improve the lighting at the police department because it doesn't meet code. You know, we're looking at ventilation systems. There are lots of things that we're looking at. There's the Center of Excellence, you know, that we're looking at funding. So there'll be funds used for that. But the intent is, and not just with the ARPA funds, but you've seen a number of ordinances come forward where we've tried to reuse money that we borrowed years ago and didn't spend. So rather than go into further debt, we're really trying to get the greatest value we can for all of the requirements that have been identified by the various, you know, city departments in terms of what would help them and or help, you know, the constituents move forward.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is for the Director of Economic Development. I believe the administration is requesting 230,000 in salary, but that's not what you requested. So if there could just be an explanation on why the administration is requesting more than what the department is requesting.
I think they're, usually it doesn't work that way. They cut the department. So actually we requested almost 236. They are recommending 233,000 in salaries for the director department.
Okay, that's fine. I could have been mistaken. If I am, I'll send the email. That's fine.
Yeah, it usually works the other way. They cut.
So what are some of the outside consulting services economic development is going to be using? Is that for like the planners and the other like the engineer and stuff like that?
Okay, so we use a number of outside consultants. You'll see it in both the planning division line as well as in the director's line. We use several planning groups, Nishaway, CME, and those are usually consultants that we use associated with planning projects. We also use several special redevelopment councils. So redevelopment council doesn't just come out of Dave's budget, but it also comes out of my budget. There are things that the city requests, like cannabis legislation, that can't be charged to an escrow. So I pay for those kinds of services. We have two special redevelopment councils, McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman. We also have Woodlands as special redevelopment council. And so in terms of, we also have financial consultants.
Okay, so it's basically for consultants. That's fine. Okay, so I did find the question I was looking for. So in Director of Economic Development under budget line 101, you are requesting 208,000, but the administration is recommending 230,000. So is there a reason why that's happening?
I am requesting, this is on the salary line or on the organization?
It's on salary and wages.
Okay, maybe it's at the front here. Let me see what he, okay.
Yes, it's right after your goals under Director of Economic under Director of Economic Development.
Okay. Okay, so I'm looking at the budget. So for me, my office is, the request was for 362, and the administration is recommending 356. I'm looking at economic development. I requested 177,926, and the administration is providing 172,326. So am I looking at a different set of numbers?
This was printed out on March 29th at 8:55. It's fine. I'll email the BA about it. Maybe she can
Okay.
provide some more.
Yeah, because what I have is from April 11th. It was prepared by Lisa Marshall.
Well, maybe you have more updated, but that's fine. I'll email the BA and she can
Okay.
provide some more context to it. Also, there's a transition director overlap. So I do know that you will be leaving us, which I'm sad to see you go, but can you just explain what the transition director overlap is for?
That is to allow me the opportunity to train a replacement, given that we have a lot going on in the city of Plainfield. So we want to ensure a smooth transition. And in order to make that happen, I personally do need to spend some time with the new director and ensuring that that person is as comfortable as possible as we do a transition.
Okay, and then outside consulting services for the master plan. It's about $40,000. Can you just explain why we still need those outside consulting services?
Yeah, so what happened was the master plan is treated like a capital project, and Ron probably could elaborate on this. So we spread the cost over 5 years. So it's not that we're doing anything additional with the master plan, it's just the cost was spread over 5 years.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
I just want to circle back to Councilwoman Davis's question. The $22,000 difference between what was requested and what the administration put in is the overlap for Val's position. So when she had done her budget, she hadn't put in money so that somebody could be with her and train for about 2 months. And when we met and we talked, we found that that's really necessary.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Davis. We're going to move right along. Good evening, Councilman Hockaday. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council President. Director Jackson, first of all, I am in thorough disagreement with you leaving the department. So I'd like to, first of all, express my displeasure.
I was wondering where that was going.
Yeah, no, it's not authorized. Kicking free more than ever with that one decision. But I've had the pleasure of working with you on the Economic Development Committee and see from its inception many of the projects that have gone on throughout Plainfield. I mean, it really is a significant feat to say that we have $1 billion in development. And along with the Economic Development Committee, along with under the leadership of our chair, Joylette Mills Ransom, we've been able to talk intelligently, critically about many of these projects, especially Councilman McCray. He's a tough one. He has a very much a concern about what goes in and around Plainfield. So we duke it out on the committee, but ultimately I think that Plainfield is becoming better for that. So just an awesome job all the way around. Plainfield is literally clicking on all cylinders because of your work. In working with the mayor, I just don't know who your replacement could possibly be at this point. All right, let me stop blowing so much smoke, but sure people are getting sick of me now. But so with the employees that we have that are going from part-time to full-time, how much of a struggle was it? Were they just available for full-time work? That seemed to be a pretty seamless type of transition, that we had existing employees who already worked there, that knows the job, that were able to transition into full-time work. Can you describe that process a little bit?
Yeah, so let me explain it. Typically, subcode officials who do part-time work in multiple towns.
Yeah.
And so when they're doing part-time work, they're doing multiple towns. And so this was a chance for them to be fully committed to the city of Plainfield in terms of their workload and doing what we needed to do. I asked last year, because the team moved over, the budget was already set. I asked them to bear with me, that I promised that for your commitment and your dedication to doing the work, because we worked them a number of hours outside of their normal part-time hours last year. And this was the right thing to do given the workload. And so we're benefiting from this, and it makes it so that we can get the work out, and the work is not going to stop. This is a 3 to 5 year journey, at least, in terms of these projects. And so as we start to build out the cannabis facilities, and I'm not talking about retail, I'm talking about cultivation, I expect those things to expand over time. And so we need to have the appropriate staff in place. And this was the way to get the commitment from the people that were already employed.
Thank you. I certainly agree there. Another number that I heard that was striking was the permitting revenue, that we're about maybe a third way through the year, and we're already halfway through our last year's number, which was a big number. So that shows Plainfield is growing, and that people are improving Plainfield, and it's actually something that many of us who may visit our neighbors door to door. Sometimes you can see that that Plainfield could stand improvement in certain areas. I know some neighbors, they're interested in and for even our business owners are interested in facade improvements and so forth. Plainfield is a town that could certainly stand improvements in that regard. But my question is, what do you think is the best usage of this increased revenue, and how do we get it and place that money in areas where we can continue to make improvements and investments in the city?
Okay, so I'm going to make one statement just in case the state is listening, but that statement is the following. Technically, we're not supposed to make additional revenue from UCC. We're supposed to break even, because a portion of the money does go to the state as well. So technically, we're supposed to break even. We're supposed to cover our costs. It's a cost center. And so this reporting that we do is an annual reporting process to the state. We report to them quarterly what we're doing, and we report to them annually what we're doing related to the whole Uniform Construction Code. So I wanted to clarify that first. The second thing is the revenue does allow us to move people to full-time. And that was my argument in terms of meeting on the administrative side. We will have the revenue to cover those expenses. If there's excess, Ron always finds a way to use it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you for your work. And we look forward to working with you the rest of the year on the many things that Plainfield has going on. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We're going to move right along to Councilman McKenna. Good evening.
Good evening. So I've been scratching off my questions as they've been getting asked and
It
answered. But
happens.
I got a few left here,
Okay.
mixed in with my chicken scratch. Real quick, and this is kind of a general statement across all the goals and objectives that I see. And I did notice the tax assessor did his a little differently, where it's goal and objective broken out. And the only reason I say that is that I think having goals that are measurable is helpful, so that there's a intent in mind. And I know that Director of Finance did that as well with tax revenue percentages, et cetera. So that's just one comment, but that's kind of a broad one across all the departments. Real quick, came to mind while you were speaking, how many, if you know, just roughly, how many projects that have gone before a board and been approved have, for some reason or other, had to be paused? No fault of the city, just
Right.
financing or, you know, the developer issues themselves.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, we haven't had that many. I believe when I first got to Plainfield, there were a lot of stagnant, what I would call stagnant projects. But interestingly enough, we really haven't had a pause, not even with COVID, which is very interesting. And I do think it's related to our commitment to be consistent and continually work with the developers to get them through the process. So I think that that's important.
I was mostly just concerned, and it wasn't a city administration thing, mostly concerned to see if the market was affecting
Changing.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, whether we just need to pause for financing or whatever issue.
Yeah. They haven't slowed down. There are a few developers who are nervous about the market and interest rates and construction costs. There are a few hiccups. 1000 North, people thought that they had stopped working. They had to stop working. They're working on the inside, but they're waiting for windows to arrive. Oh. So there are supply issues and supply chain, those kind of issues. Yes, I do see it, but people are continuing to build, and some are nervous. That's the best way to characterize it.
What about the old YMCA building, that development? Is that still moving through the process?
No, that is not moving through the process at this juncture. That developer has another block that they're in agreements with us on. They need to move on that. Okay. So we have finalized the agreements on the other block, and I'm a big proponent of let's not do any more deals until you do the deal you're supposed to do. So
right, I agree with that. 100%. The other question I have, and it came up while you were speaking, does Department of Economic Development handle the 2% cannabis audits that have to be done?
So the way that we have worked it out is the same thing, the same way that we worked out pilots. It's the same thing. We will take in the initial application and licensing fees in the Department of Economic Development. Any recurring revenue will be handled by the Department of Finance, and they will be collecting the 2% tax. They will get it similar to a pilot. They will get the audits by March 31st of every year for each cannabis operator.
And real quickly, the audit, the pilot so far, the newer pilots, not the older ones so much. Are those audits lining up with what was anticipated in those projections originally?
I personally haven't seen the audits, but I will say this about that, is particularly even with the Quinn, the city's revenue on a pilot is 1% of gross rents. Mm-hmm. And so the Quinn projected rents were a lot lower than what they actually leased for. So what you're going to typically see is better revenues once they lease up. And so the rents are typically end up being higher when they lease.
So their pro formas were more conservative than the reality of the market.
Yes.
I have no other questions. I'm good. Thank you.
Councilman McKenna, thank you so much. Now we'll move right along to Councilwoman Mills Ransom. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. President. Good evening, Director Jackson.
Good evening, Councilwoman.
I want to echo a lot of what Councilman Hockaday said, because we are members of the Economic Development Committee, and I've had the pleasure of chairing it for the last 3 years. And I want everyone to know that's on here that Director Jackson did not miss a beat during COVID. We did not miss one meeting. And in fact, we meet again tomorrow, monthly. But what's good about those meetings is that we've had an opportunity to ask you serious, critical questions, and you have responded. Sometimes the response was, I'll take this back and we'll bring it back another time. Sometimes it was our suggestion to do a presentation before the whole council, and you did not hesitate to do that. So I have, yeah, well, you know how I feel about seeing your job posted. I am not happy at all.
I know you were one of my first calls.
Right, but it's always a pleasure to work with someone who knows how to do the job and wants to do the job better each and every time, and will work with those who have worked with her just seamlessly. It almost seems that we work. I would like to let everybody know also that I've met your staff, your new staff. I am very impressed. And I really think that you have picked some of the cream of the crop, and that Plainfield will be much better for it. So this is not goodbye to you. And if somebody locks your door and you cannot leave, you'll know who it is. I do not have any questions because, as I said, we do get our questions answered at those subcommittee meetings. And it is the opportunity of the others to have other council members to also have an opportunity to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Vice President McCray.
Good evening, Director Jackson.
Good evening, Councilman, Vice President.
As my two colleagues who also sit on the Economic Development Committee with me, don't worry about your door being locked, because we're moving your whole residence into the second floor so that you don't have far to go and you can't go. It has been a pleasure, and as my colleagues say, we work with you consistently, and you have raised the bar so high that we don't know whom will be able to fill your shoes in this position. And you have definitely brought Plainfield to a new level that is the envy of many communities throughout New Jersey, which is what we strive to be seen as a forward-thinking, and as you always say, it's not the development projects that are here today, but those that you look for in the future and how you plan to get to that future and make sure it's a sustainable future that we have here in Plainfield. So I want to thank you. And I really don't have any questions because, as my colleagues say, we sit on this Economic Development Committee, and as Councilman Hockaday say, I can be one of those big pain in the necks that will take you to task on the different projects so that
You said it,
know
not me.
what we're getting. And you have handled very well and made sure that, hey, everything is in order, and we are definitely going to miss that knowledge. And I don't know how we can take that knowledge that you have and inject it. Maybe we can talk to the geneticists and people that clone stuff so that we can clone and keep Plainfield moving in the direction that we move in. Because not only do you do economic development, but your expertise and the way you work with your colleagues in the administration is also to be commended.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to make one comment, Council President, if I may.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead, Director.
I would say that for whoever the next director is, you have to do what you've done with me. You take me to task. As a result, the mayor takes me to task on certain things. And as a result, we end up with a better product. That's the bottom line, is that when council works with the administration and you take us to task and we work it together, we come out with the right solution. And that's not only for the Economic Development Committee, it's for the entire council, is that we do come out with a better solution when we're working together. Okay, Council President, that's all I had to say.
Councilman McCray, you done?
Yes.
Okay. So Director Jackson, I'm not pleased hearing what I'm hearing. I'm going to try not to repeat what my colleagues have said. Your work is outstanding. I'm pretty sure everyone on here will agree with me. Those shoes are going to be some hard shoes to fill. I can imagine the many headaches you've had and all the Pepto-Bismol and Mylanta smoothies that you have drank over your time being here in the city. I will miss filling up your mailbox, both email and voicemail.
Yeah, y'all work it overtime.
Yes, and there's never been a time when I've reached out to you, and there's even been times after 6 o'clock, a couple of 7 o'clocks in there that I've reached out to you, and you've always got back to me expeditiously and a very professional. I will not accept this new person. I'm sorry, I will not accept them. So that being said, thank you so much for all that you've done and all that you do and your dedication to doing your job. And of course, I didn't mean that. Of course, we have to accept who it is, but you know. So moving right along, Chairwoman Bright, CBAC, thank you for joining us tonight. As I always like to say, we want to thank the CBAC committee for their service so many times before the meeting is over and maybe even adjourned, when we have failed to recognize them and let them know. We never want them to feel that their service is not appreciated. And I'm pretty sure myself and my colleagues will agree that we appreciate you for stepping up and doing this. So that being said, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Council President. And good evening, everyone, and Director Jackson. We actually submitted our questions in advance, and you actually answered just about all of them in your opening remarks. There was one question on the list, and that was in your goals. And if you could just explain to us what Project 23 is.
And I do apologize for referring to it as that. That is an old name for that building, which predates my tenure with Plainfield. But Building 23 is part of the Muhlenberg campus. And I probably should have not referred to it as Project 23, but it is part of the whole medical campus. And so that is what that is. And so I expect that we will start to see the development and the leasing out of the medical facilities that are being put into the campus. And that's what that refers to.
Okay, thank you. And there was one other question that was just texted to me. We wanted to know if there will be another cannabis class offered at the UCC, And do we actually get 50 participants in the first class?
Okay, so I am going to defer that to my colleague. And this is how well we work together. I was running with cannabis implementation, and he, Director Brown, came up with, well, we need to get residents in Plainfield trained. And so that whole UCC cannabis project is courtesy of Director Brown, and he can explain that. Director, you're on mute.
So this is cutting into my my presentation, so I may have to think quick on my feet. But actually, we had 60 members, 60 residents who were in the program, of which 20% have found jobs.
That's good.
Did you
think
say
so. I think it's
60 or
great.
6?
Huh?
Director Brown, was that 60 or 6?
60, 60.
60. Okay, and will there be another class scheduled?
Yes, and one of the challenges was once other cities found out what we had done, because as Director Jackson said, we were the model, and so we were the only ones. The place that offers the class has now limited how many Plainfielders can be there, so that other cities or other municipalities, Willie and Union County, can have their residents go there as well.
Okay, thank you. And Director Jackson, one more question. You said that there were 7 projects that was completed and came onto the tax roll via the pilot. So the 1.5 million that was collected, is that for all 7 projects?
That's for, on an annual basis, that's for all 7 projects.
Okay.
Okay, and remember a couple of those, so, well, I will talk offline. There's a difference between affordable housing projects versus market rate in terms of their contribution to pilots. Okay.
Okay. All righty. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chairwoman Bright, for your questions. Thank you, Director Jackson, for your presentation. I ask that you kind of hang out in the green room and enjoy the refreshments that we have supplied for you, that you can be around later for citizens' participation if there is any. Okay.
Got it.
Thank you so much. Now, let's see here. Would the Department of Health and Social Services please begin their budget overview? Director Brown, you have the floor. Good evening. You're on mute. Either that or I'm deaf, one or the other.
I think that should be it. Okay.
Yes.
Good evening, Council President Good, members of the City Council, CBAC Chairperson Bright, members of CBAC, and Mayor Adrian Mapp. I continue to be honored to represent the 40 staff members who work hard every day to ensure that all residents in Plainfield can achieve health, well-being, and self-sufficiency. We have mourned the passing of 218 of our fellow Plainfielders. The damage visited upon us runs deep. We share the collective pain of many Americans who have experienced social, psychological, and economic upheavals. In addition, there are concerns about variants, supply shortages, spikes in food, prescription drug, and energy prices, and fears of a recession turning into inflation. Nonetheless, we are not without hope. Archbishop Desmond Tutu reminded us that hope is being able to see that there is light despite all of the darkness. The brave sacrifices of all of our healthcare workers continue to save thousands of lives, and we salute the many Plainfielders who volunteered and who rallied to help others survive. These acts of human solidarity and sacrifice reflect the Plainfield spirit and runs in our veins and inspires us. While we did not meet all of our goals in 2021, we continue to be mission driven. Tonight, I want to outline how we endeavored to meet our responsibilities. The Division of Health, directed by Dr. Nazir, is 27% grant funded, investigated 4,418 COVID cases, 5,400 persons under quarantine, administered 3,039 COVID vaccines in 89 clinics organized by the Division of Health. Our vulnerable population outreach team distributed 8,300 hand sanitizers, 6,800 face masks, 7,300 COVID-19 helpline door hangers by going into the community, 5,600 COVID-19 flyers with directed people where to go to get their COVID vaccinations, and 1,700 COVID-19 educational posters. We vaccinated 173 residents with 314 vaccines that included 779 free flu shots and 20 citywide vaccination clinics. We investigated 249 new lead cases, 120 health nuisance complaints, 217 non-COVID infectious disease cases. We issued 1,972 birth certificates, 440 marriage certificates, 930 death certificates, and 255 marriage licenses, an increase of 9%. Our animal control investigated 274 animal complaints and 22 animal bite cases. The Division of Community Relations and Social Service, directed by Dr. Fuller, has grants that cover 50% of its salaries. This is comprehensive. 16,400 individuals served with bag lunches, 6,200 individuals or families were provided with food and gift cards. 2,540 families received holiday food and gift distributions. 2,000 PPEs were given out to those same families. 1,250 food and gift cards for emergency food, particularly during Hurricane Ida. 3,120 individuals are given homeless diversion and emergency referrals. 65 families received rental assistance. 10 families received childcare vouchers, and we mediated 132 cases between landlord and tenant disputes. Division of Community Development, directed by Shep Brown. Grants cover 23% of salaries. We continue to manage 978 units with a CHAP loan portfolio of $8,192,000. We coordinated the submission of 33 CDBG grant proposals totaling $2 million. Approximately 6,000 people attended the House Music Festival for a cause, which is one of a few house music festivals in the nation that recognizes health as a reason to party. Processed and administered $925,000 in municipal CDBG projects within the city. We served 33 vulnerable seniors with $1,000 home improvement grants. We relocated 3 families due to condemnations, and we collected $520,000 in vacant and abandoned fees for a 5-year total of $1.7 million. The Division of WIC, Women, Infants, and Children, directed by Dr. Stewart, is 100% grant funded, and they see about 3,000 cases per month for about 36,000 cases a year. PPAC, directed by Sharon McGuire, JD. PPAC has turned into a regional cultural and community resource in its short existence. Hurricane Ida significantly damaged PPAC as it did residents throughout Plainfield, further limiting in-person events. Still, we remained a welcoming home for the arts, health, workforce development, a disaster response site, and much more. Currently has 1 employee, and we're requesting 2 full-time employees, 1 for programs and 1 for laborer cleanup, a maintenance person to help keep the building clean and the site clean and to help set up. In 2021, there were 1,577 in-person people who attended in-person events. 300 additional people attended the county flu clinics. In 2022, already 2,960 people have gone through or attended events or COVID testing or any kind of events in PPAC. And we project about 8,240 more people will attend non-testing events, just events in general. PPAC has 2 preserved Union County grants and 1 National Endowment grant. I'm just gonna briefly go through some of the community events and highlights. I won't go through them all, but I think it's important that I do that so you can see the scope and depth of what goes on in PPAC. Read Across America, Empower Arts, Juneteenth event, Sunday with the Steinway, which is our inaugural piano performance. Greg Williams, a past teacher and jazz musician, streamed his concert from Heritage Hall. Classical flutist, guitarist, Klein Duo, filmed their premiere of a commission piece by notable New Jersey composer Amanda Harburg, and it was premiered at the National Flute Convention. a Quinception, a woodwind quartet filmed an original piece in Heritage Hall, Poetry and Flow, which was music and spoken word. Plainfield singer Monique Atkins had her album debut. Hispanic Theater Festival La Casita Feliz, which was the only admission-free theater performance in Union County in Spanish. And David Lopez had his art installation, which he presented to children. He's a Plainfield resident and an internationally multidisciplinary painter. In 2021, I committed to strengthen the organization structure to meet the needs of the communities we serve, regardless of age, race, gender orientation. To that end, each staff member received quality professional development in addition to their license requirements. This also included customer service training, with one unit receiving one-on-one training this year. Finally, WIC became a direct report to me. The City of Plainfield completed the year-long Cities of Opportunity Action cohort, turning crisis into pathways for equity and resiliency, resulting in a published national report. We will now take what we have learned and begin looking internally to see how we as a municipality score on the equity and resiliency scorecard and shine a light on those areas that we find lacking. As a leading city, we just don't talk the talk, we also walk the walk. Again, our cannabis certification pilot program in collaboration with Union County College was the first in the state, sponsored by a municipality. It serves as a model for other cities to create innovative workforce development programs. Of the original 60 residents, 20% have found work, and we do have a waiting list. And because we keep pushing the needle, Plainfield was selected to start building the infrastructure for financial empowerment centers, a national financial capacity building movement funded by Bloomberg Philanthropies, Citibank, and JP Morgan Chase. Council President, the department is 45% grant funded and 1.8% of the municipal budget. There are contractual salary increases and a request for 2 full-time and 1 part-time position. I'm pleased to answer questions on the department's fiscal year 2020 budget request. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Brown. I appreciate that presentation. Those numbers are outstanding. I can't imagine a sigh of relief of how many residents throughout the city nearby who appreciate all the help that they have been given, the aid that they had been given, whether it been food or rental assistance. Your department is amazing. I mean, I couldn't imagine what it would be like if the assistance that was provided for all of those people, what would have happened if it was not given. So I applaud you and your department and all of those and your staff. The 218 deaths was as of when? Of COVID deaths?
That's total.
As of when did the number? Oh, that up to today, of course, right?
Right. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. And I heard you mention 173 resident vaccinations. Are those 173 also boosted as well?
No, those are general vaccinations that we do. We have a vaccination program. It could, and it's flus, it's any kind of childhood vaccinations, whether it's mumps, measles, maribella. We provide all those vaccinations.
Okay, so that's overall. I don't.
That's in addition to COVID.
In addition to COVID. Okay. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for, and I will relay that to my department as well.
Oh, please do. And also, I always let them know every time I talk to them, your department is spot on with getting back to us in a timely fashion with any type of information that we need expeditiously. And we appreciate that. We always will. Councilwoman Terry Briggs Jones has something that she would like to say. She said she didn't have any questions, but she wanted to make a statement to you, Director Brown. Councilwoman Briggs Jones, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Director Brown, and for your presentation. And I just want to say, since I've been in office and I started in January, back in January, your office assisted me with a family that I had a fire. 4 houses down from me. So they were very, very helpful and assisted me in things that they needed. The Red Cross came in, and then the very next day I happened to take the day off. I came into the office and you were there, and your office was there to assist me. With all the data that you have, you're gonna need 2 or 3 or 4 more employees. So I hope you get them. So
I hope so.
So with that being said, I thank you for your presentation and thank you for all the work you do. And I look forward to working with you. And please, thank you. And yes, I do have an event at the PPAC this Thursday, everybody.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Mental wellness.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilwoman Terry Briggs Jones didn't know, but I was going to mention that before we adjourn this evening about your event, the mental health event that you're having on Thursday at PPAC. Councilwoman Ashley Davis is waiting patiently. You have the floor, Councilwoman. Go right ahead.
Why, thank you. Director Brown, I must say that your office does, well, your whole department does a lot of work for the city. It is one of the departments that we don't talk enough about. DPW always gets the recognition because they're always at the forefront. Economic development gets a lot of recognition because we can see buildings going up. But the work that your department does is just as important and just as integral to the running of the city. So we appreciate you for that. I must say that your budget, second to the Department of Finance budget, was really good. Like there wasn't too many things that stood out as, a little off, but I do have a couple of questions. My first question is, where are the funds for the House Music Festival coming from for this year's budget?
So there's a separate line for that within the director's director's budget.
So I saw that, and I saw that you made a recommendation for an amount, but then where it said administration's recommendation, there was a line there and not a number like usual. So is it coming from a different source, or is it still coming from that budget line?
No, I'm sorry, I just saw it too. It is coming from.
I can speak to that. It's the same thing as in the past when you saw with the strikeout for, it means that we're gonna have ARPA money funded.
Okay, thank you. For the health division, there is only $8,000 in overtime. Is the rest of that overtime coming from ARPA money as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And then my final question is, why is the administration recommending $115,000 in outside consulting services when that was not the department's recommendation?
I can also speak to that one. So $50,000 of that is a firm that I want to hire, and I believe it's a health initiative, but it's related to our workers' comp. I'd like to do an audit of our workers' comp, specifically one of the vendors that we use, and make sure that people are being treated efficiently and there's no lingering going on. I also want to make sure that they are charging us appropriately, that physical, occupational, all the therapies are being utilized appropriately and, only when necessary. And so it's health/personnel, but I put it under health.
Thank you. So Mr. West, after hearing BA Levinson's statement, would that 50,000 be better put in the personnel budget, or is it okay to stay in the health department budget?
It's fine to stay in health.
Okay, thank you. That is all of my questions.
Councilman Hockaday, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Council President. Director, it's definitely been a pleasure to see your department just perform on all cylinders, especially through the pandemic. You're certainly, a leader of a bunch of first responders who stepped up to the plate during a time when many were forced to just retreat or stay at their homes. You all were doing admirable work. And as we navigate through this, we appreciate your steady leadership. So I'm just listening. I'm hoping I'm not hearing that you're retiring too, because, you know, we have you for a few more years, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you make that commitment now?
I can, sir.
Okay. All right.
I'll be here.
I think I might have misheard on the amount of vaccines that we gave out to the city. What was that number again of vaccinations? And from what date range was it? Was it from the inception or just this year?
It was later on in the inception, because if you recall, one of the things that the main place that we got our vaccinations was through the county. And that was through the state, and that was by design, because the vaccinations were limited and they weren't released. So we had to work with the county. So I didn't include those clinics and those vaccinations in my total number. The numbers that I included were the ones that we as the division did as the Department of Health. And those numbers are correct.
Okay.
We administered 3,039 COVID-19 vaccines.
Okay.
And so just if I can just add, we did those in the community. We partnered with churches, we partnered with whoever would want to partner with us, and had those clinics on site. And that was the difference between what the county was doing. So while the county was doing their thing at the high school, we also moved out we were in front of McDonald's, we were all over the place to complement each other. It was not a competition. It was certainly to complement and get as many people vaccinated as possible.
Absolutely. No, I thought the number was a little low, but now I understand the full context of that.
Right.
So do you know the numbers of how many were vaccinated between the city and the county?
I can get that. That's easy. I didn't have that because I just wanted to concentrate on what the city did, because it was in our budget, but certainly about 70% of the city is vaccinated of all adult. So I'll get you a hard number for that though, for sure.
Oh, thank you. In terms of staff, because I mean, it seems as though your department is at times can be stretched thin as well. You feel like you have all the staff that you need. Have you given any consideration to growing your department?
I do, but within the context of making sure I'm in a budget that doesn't impact residents too significantly, right? So I'll work with what we have, but I do think that it's important that I have staff at PPAC. Not for nothing, we have 1.5 people working there, and I'm the other half. And so I will be helping people park their cars and directing people where to go. Just all kinds of things that help make sure that people are comfortable and safe when they come to PPAC. So, and clean. I mean, you know, it's while we do have support of the great DPW, we're still called to do those kind of things because sometimes meetings are quick, right? We need to be able to make sure a room is set up, and we do that. So I'm the half, and Sharon is the one, and we can't do the work that's being demanded of us in that site anymore.
Right. I certainly wish that for you. And if there's anything that can be done, I think it should be a discussion had. There's a question. I know that CBAC's probably going to have this question as well, but for me, it was just a little too important to. Here's what I found. To not mention it. That's Siri. In terms of the line item regarding homelessness, I think it was the 3,000 allocated to that. Describe, like, is there other funding sources that help us with that? Because in line with our overall budget, it seemed to be a small number for a really serious problem. So
the 3,000 and probably previous years it was 11,000. Previous years it would have been 6,000. It fluctuates. Is really for condemnations or people who have lost their housing, right? So during Ida, we found hotel housing for you. We find you temporary housing. So that's what that line is for. In some years, particularly last year, the year before, we didn't spend as much. But this year in 2022, we are spending a lot more housing people in their homes. When it comes to homelessness, that's something different. And while some of those people are technically homeless if they're condemned, we also provide them a wraparound service to find apartments. And that's what our homeless diversion is. I mean, we can talk about homelessness for quite some time, but there's different kind of types of homelessness. There are people who live on sofas. There's people who live in the streets. So for those who live in the streets, we work with nonprofit agencies to help them get off the streets if they want to get off the street, right? Because there are some people who, I know there's a particular gentleman who's in a wheelchair. I won't call their names because, for privacy reasons. And working with Director Abney, we have gotten that person off, particularly through our office, and we have gotten them into a house, into a home, not necessarily in Plainfield, but in a home that they elected not to stay in. And so they came back to where they are. So of course, residents are concerned. We see this person in a wheelchair and they're not being addressed. Oftentimes the residents don't see the work behind what we're trying to do to get the people off the street. That's just another example. We do work with families who may be living in cars, and we find, which they do, and we find them homes. While they may not always be in Plainfield, we have partners in different parts of the state where we will try to find new homes. And so those are the that's what we call diversion. So if a family comes to us and they happen to be homeless because of whatever reason, we try to find them a place. If it's a singleton, meaning a single person, we try to see if we can get them into the YMCA in either Elizabeth, because they have long-term housing, or into Newark. So it depends on the situation. It depends on the need. $3,000, so I can be clear, we also use money from ARPA this year because the number was so great, and we anticipate that the number will be greater. And so we're using the funds for that. Normally we request around $11,000.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Director, for all your efforts, and please thank your department as well for
Thank you, sir, and thank you on behalf of my department.
No further questions, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman McKenna, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just have just a few questions, Director Brown. Just to follow up on Councilman Hockaday's topic, what can we do as a city and as a city council to help exact some change with respect to homeless advocacy and services at the county and state level? We do a lot of resolutions to encourage people voting for all sorts of things. And I think we tend to, and I'll include myself in this, not encourage the state and the county to get off their keisters when it comes to addressing the homelessness issue. And we're not the only city that's dealing with it. There are other towns and cities that are being affected too. What else can we do other than just waiting for them to offer us a grant?
So thank you, Councilman. That's a great question. First, the county is a great partner, right? And so they have the same issue trying to find housing for homeless. So when I say one of our partners, the county is one of our partners, particularly their under Debbie Ann Anderson, her Department of Human Services is one of our partners in finding homes and finding placements. And so whatever anyone can do to advocate for services for our homeless, we appreciate. I mean, we knock on the doors of our colleagues in the state. We knock on the doors of the county. If City Council wants to do that as well, I welcome that. But it is a challenge because there are limited spaces for people to go. COVID exacerbated that. It wasn't simply that they were ill. It was that a lot of facilities were closed and not taking on new residents. Now, I will say this: some of the residents, and this is not a fault of their own, this is their own decision, didn't want to be in some of those homes because they feel unsafe, and they feel that they don't want to be separated from their families, particularly in cases where there's a husband and wife. Sometimes you will be separated, and so some of our families simply don't want to do that. If most of our families are female-headed, and they don't want to take their children into places. They would rather sleep in their car than take their children in certain facilities. That's not across the board. That's not to damn any institution. But those are some of the challenges that people face when they're seeking housing. Again, if you want to advocate for us, Councilman McKenna, I would love it, right? If you feel that it's necessary to speak to the state, I think it's good, but we're also doing that. We're looking for those dollars. And we're looking for those assistance, which the county has been a great partner.
Oh, and do we have any, charitable organizations that are interested in coming to Plainfield to develop some housing alternatives, especially with respect to domestic violence with females and single households with females with children. Do we have any charitable organizations that have shown an interest in trying to help alleviate that locally so that those kids can be in school? I know a lot of them go to school locally, so setting with the gateway doesn't exactly check all the boxes.
So when it comes to domestic violence, we do work with the domestic violence organization in Union County, because they do come to community relations social services for help, and they're known for that site. The one thing about domestic violence, it's a secretive experience, right? So we don't want to know where those homes are, because once those homes are known in public, that's where the abuser will go back to, or that's where the abuser may go to, right? So one of the things that we have not attracted is an organization that wants to do housing for domestic violence here in Plainfield. If they wanted to, I would send them to Director Jackson. I don't do all of that. And I've not gotten anyone contact me directly about any kind of housing for any kind of homeless or anything like that. I've not gotten anything directly.
Thank you for that answer. And then my last question, well, two, I have two, but I'll do one first. So if we have time. Where are we with the abandoned properties program at the moment? I know it's an ever evolving, project depending on the market and et cetera.
So is there a specific avenue?
Well, we were doing the project to catalog and get them off the abandoned properties rolls.
Sure.
And
so it's posted regularly when we have houses. It does go on there. There's some challenge. Well, I'm gonna talk about the challenges in a minute. What we do is once we inspect the property, we put it on the list, then we post the list in the paper, and then it goes on a public document. As you know, or may not know, the last few years have been a challenge because the market has been so hot that we've not had as many properties on our list because they've been selling relatively quickly.
That is not a challenge.
Oh, no. I don't. Well, it's a challenge for us to try to keep up with them, right? So while we have a house on our list, we go to look for that house because we like to do re-inspections because that's huh?
And it's sold. Someone's mowing the lawn.
It's sold and there's a new ownership. So it is a challenge for me and our organization to keep on top of monitoring these houses, because then if a new owner comes on, we have to start the process all over again under this new owner, because you can't give this new owner the problems of a previous owner, but they will acquire it if they don't work. Now, I'm glad you brought that up, because we will have a challenge going into 2022 because there's a new law enacted, and it really is to help small other towns who don't have a solid program like we do to start their own program. And it is going to hinder how much money we may bring in, and it may hinder how much work we can do. And so while I will bring that before City Council when it's time, it's before Corporation Council, because the way the law stands now, we are hurt because we have an established program. And so I'm trying to find out if we are indeed grandfathered in. If we are, then the fees that we collect, the work that we do remains the same. But if it's not, then the fee schedule changes and there's going to be a major drop in what we collect. A state law that passed, or a state law that's proposed? And I don't remember the exact number, but I'll get that to you. So if you wish, I'll get it to you.
I would like to see that.
Yeah. So it is relatively new, and we have to get it done relatively soon, and it's going to impact how we do the work that we do. So where this year I was very proud to say that we collected over $500,000 in fees, I may not be able to do that next year. I may only be saved 100,000, and we've put some sweat and tears in this program to get it up and running.
Hopefully we do it well, so the lower the fees means the lower the list of abandoned homes. So that, how much is it?
I don't know if you know, I really don't celebrate this, right? I don't celebrate it because that means that there's a family in Plainfield in crisis. So I don't celebrate that we do it. I celebrate the fact that we have a strong program to address those individuals who, for instance, will come into Plainfield.
We may be talking about two different programs. I'm not talking about the condemnation properties?
No, I'm not.
Like the overcrowding. I'm talking about just regular abandoned people walking away from the house. The bank doesn't know.
I am too.
Okay.
Under the state ordinance, it's really one. It's not separated out. So it's foreclosed properties, it's vacant and abandoned properties. We've come accustomed to call it vacant and abandoned, but it is all.
It covers the whole. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. My last question is: Has there ever been a conversation for any economies of scale by having vital statistics in the clerk's department? I know some municipalities have that, and it's often a clerk sort of purview, especially with respect to adding the PPAC and all the other things on your plate. Are there savings or any economies of scale by having the vital statistics under the clerk's department?
So I've not had that conversation. I certainly have not had that conversation. The way I've taken it is my job is just to try to improve the customer relations and to make sure that when customers reach out to any office in my department, they receive the same level of high respect and the same kind of level of concern. I know that I have gotten a lot of phone calls and emails about certain units. And so being proactive, I made sure that they had the customer service training, my whole department, in addition to other things. But I'm focusing on one unit to make sure they have one-on-one customer service so that they can, so that we don't start seeing, or we don't continue to see emails and Facebook posts and all those other things about a particular unit that I govern. And so I'm working on making that a better experience. We started with doing things online. Now we're gonna work on the people and making sure that when residents contact them, they walk away with a better experience.
Okay, and I'm all done, but I think Dr. Nazir has his hand up. I don't know if that's part of the presentation or not, but
No, he shouldn't have his hand up. I got this.
Cool. Thank you, Director. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Mills Ransom, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Director Brown, thank you for being the hat over at PPAC. I really appreciate you able to.
One second. Is it just me, or is everyone getting some feedback?
She sounds like she's at an auditorium.
So nice, she had to say it twice.
Oh.
Mute and unmute. Try, maybe if you mute and then unmute again. See if that does it. How about now?
Okay. What?
No, it's still there.
Got double voices.
She's probably
Yeah.
logged in.
It sounds like it's like six. It sounds like six of you talking.
She might be logged in twice.
Wow.
It's telling me logged in.
I don't know what to do. So just pass by.
No, go ahead.
Can you try
we'll make
turning
do.
down the volume on your end? Maybe that could be it. Maybe your volume is too high and it's just getting feedback from everything else. So try turning down your laptop volume and then try speaking again.
Okay. How about now?
No, you're still echoed.
I dealt with it in half. A leak. I turned down half what it was.
We'll make do, Councilwoman. Just you can go ahead. We'll do the best we can from here on. Go ahead. Proceed.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just going to say thank you for being the half PPAC, and I will talk about my questions.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Council Vice President McCray.
Good evening, Director Brown.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you for your presentation. One thing I just like to point out is that the statistics that you quoted and you presented to us, we need to make sure that the public really understands, because you are providing a vital service. And oftentimes we hear that Plainfield is not doing enough. There's always more you can do, but we are doing a lot. And many times, because of the sensitive nature of what you do, people really don't get the full impact of what you're doing. And that in itself, to let the people know that you are providing services that are essential to the well-being of the community, is great. And I commend you and your organization and all the people who work for you for the work that they do, the effort that they put in. And we always hear about something negative, or they don't like the way someone spoke to them. But your people, from all that I've been able to ascertain, have been very professional, and they go out of their way to help people make sure that the people are serviced properly. And I just want to say thank you to your whole team for what they do for the citizens of Plainfield.
Thank you on behalf of my department. Thank you as well.
That's it, Council President.
Council Vice President, thank you so much. Director Brown, thank you again for your presentation. Again, we thank you so much for all that you and your department does. I hope you're feeling the love tonight, because
I am.
It's out here, it's in here. And so we're going to move on, but I'm not going to ask that you, oh, wait a second, Chairwoman Bright, you have the floor. I was about to dismiss you altogether there. I'm sorry about that. You know, that happens as you get older. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. And Director Brown, thank you. I just want to echo what Vice Chair McCray just said. I was thinking the same thing. The stats that you ran off in the beginning was extremely impressive. And it would behoove us to get that information out to the public. If it could be on our website somewhere where it's easily accessible to the public, it would go a long way, because they were very impressive. Your department does a lot. And each year that I serve on the CBAC, you know, the entire CBAC team is always impressed by your department.
Thank you.
But we do have a couple of questions.
That's good.
Don't get out that easy.
I tried.
Yeah, you did.
You did answer most of them already. The consultant fees, they wanted to know a little bit more. We wanted to know a little bit more about the animal control and what those funds are used for.
Sure. So animal control is statutory. We're required to have that operation in our city. And so they do the investigations of animal bites. They do investigations in anything to do with animals in the city of Plainfield. They also will remove carcasses. That's also their responsibility. But overall, with any complaint or any concern about animals in the city, they manage that. In addition to the licensing process. So they work closely with the other part of the Division of Health to work out licensing for the pets, whether it's cat or dog. They work out to do the clinics as well. And so when you hear challenges around, there's a chicken farm or some chickens, they go out and they, in collaboration with the zoning office, they go out and issue citations. They go and claim the animal, or they give you a summons and tell you where to bring the animal. We don't do anything else with the ordinance. We just go out and do work. Now, if you're talking about also the center for the $123,000, I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay, so that's our the facility we consult with or we hired on Rock Avenue. And so they're the Humane Society. And so if you want to surrender your animals there, like I said, they do all that stuff. In addition, you can surrender your animals, they care for animals, we're responsible for it. But they do go out into Plainfield, whether it's to pick up dead animals, whether it's to investigate situations in community that deal with animals, any kind of animals, that's what they do. And they've been very good at it. I mean, they're relatively new organization for us to work with, and they've been super great. I'm glad we took them on.
Okay, thank you. A couple of more questions. If you could just tell us what art community champions? And what would the 30K that you're requesting be used for?
Right. So we don't use that money. So because we use a third-party vendor, which is Community Champions, to collect our fees for vacant and abandoned and foreclosed homes, we don't collect it directly. The state has a statute that mandates that we set aside amount of money. So every year on the budget, there will always be, as long as we have this consultancy or this group we work with, set aside, which is $30,000. So we don't use that money.
Okay. Going back to the cannabis classes, you mentioned there was a waiting list. Now that way, and then I thought I heard you say something about other towns wanting to come to the class. Will Plainfield residents be considered first?
So Dr. Fuller and I, I was going to say, we're very aggressive in getting Plainfielders into the program because it really is now run with Union County College. I'm really not concerned at all with other municipalities. I really don't care what they do. But so we advocate for Plainfields and we set up a certain percentage. Now, if that program starts to show that they are taking less Plainfielders, we're just going to seek another university that may be local to work with us to make sure that our Plainfielders get the business. I mean, I'm really passionate about this program because it's a $1 billion industry. We want to make sure our residents have access to this industry as well.
Okay. And going back to the $50,000 that's allocated for the house festival, you said that those funds were coming from, where's the funds coming from?
It comes from ARPA, the ARPA money, the federal money.
Okay. Now, going forward in the next year budget, where would that money come from?
It's a good question. I would imagine, well, I think in B.A. Levinson or Mr. West can possibly, because he's smiling, he can possibly answer that. What I will say is that I will always advocate for the money to be there. I'm not sure what line it's coming from, but I'm going to say it needs to be there because it draws thousands of people to Plainfield to see Plainfield. So perhaps Director West or Director Levinson can answer that question, but I will always advocate for that money. Where it comes from, that's up to them.
I did pose that question to Director West, so maybe he'll ask it in his thing. One last question. This question was just text to me. They want to know, is the historic district affecting our lead numbers? And can we be lead free in 10 years?
So there's two ways to answer that question. Any house before 1945 has lead. It's just a given. It's just a fact. But how we get our lead numbers is through our children. And so when children go for their customary doctor's visits and if blood is drawn, when the doctor finds that they have high lead or elevated lead, doesn't have to be high, elevated, they're mandated to report that. It then goes to either a nurse at RWJ Hospital, which we contract with, and then it comes to our communicable disease office, and then to our unit that we have dedicated to abatement. So it really is a process, and I would never say, because that would be erroneous, that we will be 100% lead free. While it is ideal, I can't honestly say that. Now, if I want to add, we do have to do a better job, and I will take that on to educating the public about lead in children, and certainly we will do that, and I will make sure Dr. Zia accomplishes that. But I could never say we'll be 100% lead free.
Okay, thank you. That was it. Thank you, Director Brown.
You're welcome.
Council President, can I ask a quick question on the lead thing, just to follow up?
Follow up. You can follow up.
Paint related versus pipe? Or do we know?
Say that. So when we get our notification from our children, is how they get it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it was from the pipes. It could be from the paint.
But do we have a balance between how many of it is paint related versus lead?
No, because what we do, well, what we do is once we get the number and the reference and the referral from the doctor, then we take action. Now, it could be in your soil. It could be in a host of things that contain lead. It doesn't have to be in the pipes. It doesn't have to be in the paint. It could be in your soil. It could be in anything. There's a host of ways that children would ingest lead. It used to be that if you ate the pencil, right? That's how you can ingest. I mean, you got to eat a lot of pencils, but that's how you would have elevated lead levels. So it is not just one way that a child can have lead in their blood.
Thank you, Director Brown. We appreciate you and all that you do and your department. And I will ask that you hang out with us a little longer with Director Jackson to participate possibly in citizens' participation. And we're going to move right along.
Thank you, sir.
And we're going to ask the Department of Finance begin with their budget overview. Director West, last but not least. Good evening,
Members
sir.
of the council, CBAC, fellow Plainfielders, and certainly my administrative colleagues, good evening. To start off talking about finance, I need to level set though and go back 8 years ago when we first put in place a number of key goals for the division. And they began with things like improve the overall financial performance of the city as determined by Moody's. Eliminating audit findings, because when this process started 8 years ago, we had over 33 audit findings. Improve the tax collection rate, which was certainly below 95%, and at one point went as low as 93%. We had to strengthen the city's financial capacity, resulting in property tax stabilization and surplus regeneration. We wanted to make sure that we were investing in the city's capital infrastructure and investing in the city's technology infrastructure. We wanted to increase grant revenue. And there have been a whole lot of questions already this year at the surprising levels of grant revenues that the city's been able to generate. We wanted to make sure we established a debt management plan, so that we knew how much debt we had, and we put together strategies to make sure that we were getting, good interest rates, for what we needed to do to meet the city's requirements. We also wanted to, and this will sound a little strange, but establish a plan to address foreclosed and abandoned properties. So that was one of the things that we wanted to look at and do. When I look at the last year, I'll move up almost 8 years and talk about the 2021 key accomplishments. We had no tax increase, and that was the second year running. We completed a transition to the state health benefits plan to try to stabilize, the skyrocketing costs we were facing in terms of healthcare benefits. Zero audit findings. I'm still waiting for the report for this year, but I'm anticipating zero audit findings. We set a record once again in terms of the tax collection rate, this time at 98.15%. We generated in excess of $12 million in surplus. Established a parking utility. Financed almost $6 million in city capital improvements and an additional $680,000 needed by the parking utility. We generated in excess of $2.5 million in new grant funding. We implemented energy savings alternatives at City Hall and Municipal Court / Police Headquarters. We received an award of $23.8 million in terms of ARPA funds, but in terms of actual receipt of money, $11.9 million in ARPA funds and $4 million in CARES Act funds, which are things to be very proud of. In terms of 2022 goals and objectives, we're looking to complete the expenditure of the first $11.9 million in ARPA funds by the end of the year. We want to make sure that we receive in a timely manner the additional $11.9 million that's going to be, or that's been awarded to the city. We wanted to make sure that the operating and capital budgets were introduced by April 15th, which we did. Now we're moving forward and soon to be a closure. We're going to certainly look to have a tax collection rate of at least 97%, by the end of this year. And remember, tax collection rate is a key barometer in terms of revenue generated by the city and or collected by the city. We want to make sure we continue to generate new grant revenues, and we're looking for $1 million in new grant revenues. We want to maintain the Moody's, what's known as a MIG-1 rating for short-term financing and A1 for bond financing or better. We want to once again pursue zero audit findings. And again, you can always have challenges, but the intent is to do that. And we're also participating in the dissolution of the Pmua and transfer back into the city of Plainfield operations. When you talk about the finance department, there are currently 18, soon to be 19 people spread across the department, as well as audit and control, purchasing, the tax collector and tax assessor. From a budgetary perspective, if you look at the overall finance department, the budget was up 7.2%, with salary and wages up 2.73%, other operating expenses up 17.34%. And don't worry about it, I will answer the questions. In terms of the director's budget is up overall 29.42%. And a lot of that is up in salary and wages because there is what we call transition funding in that budget, as well as payment for time off, because I heard that director's retiring too. So that's included in the budget and is the main cause for salary and wages being up overall across the department. Outside consulting is up 27.48%. Or OE is up 27.48%, with outside consulting being the key contributor. And that's to pay for the professional services of both, that we need both legally and from an accounting perspective for the Pmua dissolution. We also pay for the grant writing. We've got a lobbying group that's been very helpful, in helping us maximize the ARPA funds that we received. So those things are the big part of our outside consulting line. In terms of audit and control, that budget is up 6.2%. Salary and wages is down 1.2%. Operating expenses is up 28.69%. And again, a lot of that is tied to outside consulting, being up $23,500. And we're looking at special projects, particularly with the transition there too. Most of you know that we have a new CFO in town. So, what we decided to do was make sure that we had money in the budget so that, as he became acclimated to, our world, he had access to tools that would make it easier to get things done, like the financial statements that are required in January, as well as the annual debt statement. Audit is also up, 17.19%. And again, what we're talking about is over the course of time, things go up, but we also wanted to make sure that if anything was to occur during the audit process, that required additional work from our audit firm, it was reflected in the budget and wouldn't be a crisis. Purchasing is up overall 9.1%, with salary and wages being up 7.4%. We've been, doing some succession planning in there. So there's an intended promotion, included in that budget. Plus, we've got people entitled to step increases. We also, reflective of what I just said about succession planning, the real increase is in other expenses where we put money in the budget, for training, conferences, and travel. And it's a small budget. So this number of 218.75% really means, we added a little money to an even smaller number and it became a big increase. Our administrative services budget, which really accounts for, all of the centralized purchasing expenses for stationery, batteries, anything that's needed by all of the groups in the city, is down 3.2%. One of the things we do is pay a lot of attention to what actions we need to take to minimize costs, whether it goes back in time to negotiating new arrangements in terms of services, to finding ways to eliminate recurring costs for telephone bills, data services. We continue to do that. Tax collector budget is down 11%. Salary and wages is up a minuscule amount of 0.12%, and that's tied more to additional responsibilities being added to the job of the tax collector, and that in particular is overseeing the pilots and their financial management and reporting. There was no change in our other operating expense for the tax collector. Tax assessor, we had our former tax assessor retire, so we have a new tax assessor. So our overall budget is down 7%. With salary and wages being down 11.95%, and our other expenses are up 36.9% for conventions, conferences, news, computer software, and training. As this new individual and his team get acclimated to the changing environment. Before I take questions, I thought I'd answer a whole host of questions from CBAC. The first being, by Plainfield being a sanctuary city and our census number, how is it affecting the total number of our budget? My answer is, being a sanctuary city had no impact on the budget. The 2020 census count of 54,586 residents, had an impact on the amount of our ARPA funds. One of the critical numbers was being above 50,000 in order to maximize your ARPA contribution. So we worked hard with our lobbyists to make sure that the census numbers were reflective of being in excess of 50,000 people, and we were able to get that done. And the other thing that happens as a result of being larger than 50,000 is that you get your funds directly from the federal government, so you don't have to deal with any intermediaries. The second question was, it basically said, well, I'll read it. The following departments represent approximately $21 million to the budget. Is there a reason why the business administrator doesn't present the budget for the following departments? Office of the Mayor, City Council, Municipal Court, HR and Benefits Administration, Public Defender, Insurance Programs, City Clerk, and Corporation Counsel. I think that's a good question. My response, though, is that the City Council decides on the meeting schedule and the dates. In other words, it determines who they need to come forward to present the budget to the people. More importantly, though, the insurance budgets, workers' comp, unemployment insurance, auto liability, the joint insurance fund, flood insurance, storage tanks, and in particular, health insurance represent 82% of that $21 million number. Can you please provide examples of items under miscellaneous for salaries and other expenses? Other expenses almost doubled over calendar year 2021, and salaries have admin requests over 1 million. There is almost a 14 million increase over last year. What will these funds be used for? And this was a continuing question. What is the source of the $9.6 million in surplus funds? All right. Examples of the sources of miscellaneous revenues are things like liquor licenses, pilot payments that we spent a lot of time you're hearing about this evening, court fines and fees. You heard about Uniform Construction Code fees and their increasing numbers. Those are all good things. The sale of municipal assets you also heard about tonight. So if we sell parking lots or vacant and or abandoned land, those are revenue generators, and then other fees and permits. The 14 million in other expenses referenced are primarily comprised of things, grants such as WIC, which you heard is fully grant funded. Various other social services grants for shelter, food, transportation. We have the COPS grant, which is 1.25 million, which is awarded to us to help us hire 10 additional police officers. Bulletproof Vest is a grant program that is in that number, and we're going to be buying bulletproof vests. We've got capital improvements that are reflected in these grant numbers as well. Some of the sources of our surplus funds were the 4 million we got in CARES Act funds, 1.7 million from what I'll classify as cost controls, $927,000 in additional miscellaneous revenues, which you've heard discussed, a number of times this evening, particularly with regard to the Uniform Construction Code group. 2.2 million in increased tax payments, which is a biggie. And then ARPA fund offsets. $50,000 is being allocated for the House Festival, which seems a lot for one event. Have we given any thought to getting sponsors? My response is hosting events is not inexpensive, so we will certainly be looking for sponsors to help offset costs, but it is a budgeted item. There was something called goal number 5. How will the 5 million in fund balance revenues be generated by 12/31/22? And then how were the $10 million in fund balance for calendar year 2021 achieved? Someone answered that, but for 2022, we will be looking to sell city assets, maintain the tax collection rate as high as possible, continue to increase revenues from the Uniform Construction Code and inspections teams. All of Valerie's negotiations with these developers, generate community benefit. And now I've got my hand out for any contributions that she's able to get. So that's a worthy source. You heard a lot about pilot revenues. We're expecting these pilot revenues to start hitting the books. There are lots of groups, as Valerie indicated so clearly this evening, under construction now. The next question was goal number 9. What was the audit finding in calendar year 21 and how was it corrected? The audit finding was for not submitting animal control payments and reports to the state on a timely basis. As a part of our correction action plan, there were additional checks and balances put in place along with modifications in the workflow and increased management accountability. They were all added as a part of our suite of tools to help ensure that at least that problem goes away. Another goal number 9, how will the dissolution and transfer of Pmua and the city of into the city of Plainfield operations affect the budget? And have there been any funds allocated in the calendar year 22 budget for the operation of solid waste and sewer maintenance? My response began by saying the only funds added to the budget were for outside legal and accounting consultants that I previously mentioned. The transfer of the Pmua into city operations will, from a worst case basis, be budget neutral for the city, which translates into we are certainly not going to lose any money as a result of the Pmua coming over onto the fold of the city. It should accrete positively. And then there was a question about a particular line item on account number 2-01-20-130-001-104. Please explain the negative amount of $10,194.33, which is a budget line in the salary category for audit and control. Overtime during the pandemic occurred in audit and control and ultimately was transferred to an ARPA grant account. What we will be doing and should have done is that there is an accounting adjustment required to properly close out the number so that there's no negative number shown in that budget line item. And that is the end of my report. I am available for any questions.
Thank you, Director West. We'll go right ahead and Terry Briggs Jones, Councilwoman Terry Briggs Jones, you have the floor. You have any questions?
No, I don't have any questions at this time, but thank you, thank you, Director West. When I did have some questions about some ideas and some things I wanted to bring forth to you, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to, and you could have just rushed out and said, "Way I can leave," but you took the time and you explained it to me, and you said, if I have any other questions, to come to you. So I like that open door policy as well as transparency, because that's important to me. So I just want to say thank you. And
Thank you.
and you can't go nowhere until I get some more questions answered too, okay? You can't leave us. But thank you anyway. No questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ashley Davis.
Director West, you didn't come in with your bow tie today, so I wasn't sure what to expect, but a true talent you are. But I still do have questions. So for the PTO payout, we know that it's a significant amount of money. So maybe this is a better question for the BA. Do we have parameters in place for when people do leave the city, we're not giving out these major PTO payouts?
I'll answer that. There are laws in place. You know, we've got policies and procedures around vacation times, and we're also in the throes of them, you know, following state laws with regard to sick time, which you know is capped at $15,000.
Okay, thank you. So this is probably our last budget hearing together. So thank you for the work that you've done for Plainfield. Thank you for the help that you've given me from going from employee to council member. And while people will be sad that you're gone, everybody deserves their time of rest. So wishing you a joyous future and whatever it is. But I will have more questions between now and your last council meeting. So thank you.
No doubt, but thank you.
I don't have any more questions, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Davis. Councilman Hockaday, you have the floor, sir.
Hey, Director. I'll echo my colleagues and just thanking you for your many years of service. You are an institution in Plainfield, as far as I'm concerned, and there's a particular pride that I have in the city that is related to how we handle our bills, our Moody's rating, being able to do more with less because of our credit rating. And that's because of you and your department. Very capable, steady leadership, very transparent. You've been answering questions and reeling off numbers and information in a manner that is almost on some spectrum. You know, you have an immense gift, and it's appreciated, and it's been a pleasure working with you. And I mean that in a good way. I see a couple of faces, they're like spectrum, you know, but it's very uncanny, and it's been a pleasure working with someone of your skill level and passion for the job. So you know, hopefully we'll get to talk about it either on the tennis courts or on the golf course in your retirement, because I have occasion to see you out there a couple of times. I'm wondering, you know, I don't know how we find a replacement for someone like you, but hopefully you can also guide us or stick around until we have somebody in place that has, you know, that you would have confidence in as well, because I think it'd be important to have some continuity as much as possible in that position. That, you know, no one could really do what you do or be who you are, but you know, hopefully there's some, you know, there's some way that you can impart some of your knowledge, your ability, your caring, your love for the job, and your love for Plainfield, into what you're doing. So I'm just saying thank you. I don't have any questions. I know, you know, whatever I answer, sometimes, you know, you ask Director West a question and it almost seems obvious after he answers it. And that's just a testament to your skill in being able to effectively deal with the financials and the business of the city in such a way. So thank you, Director. Look forward to seeing you even in your retirement. And I have no further questions. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman Hockaday. Councilman McKenna.
Well, as fitting for Director West's final budget meeting, as he was going through, I went through my list and I scratched them off. And I have no questions. And I can only say that your presentation gave me some flashbacks to tax credit summaries on the whiteboard. So it was a nice memory, and thank you very much. I have nothing to ask.
Is my mic working? I mean, Councilman McKenna?
You want me to just, let's see.
No, that's okay. That's okay. But thank you, Councilman McKenna.
Yeah.
We're gonna move right along to Councilwoman Joylette Mills Ransom.
Is my mic working well now? No. Is that sound six people?
Working.
I don't know what's going on, Ron. You know I have to say thank you. And it's been a while since you were sitting in that seat coming back into Plainfield. The process. I just had a good feeling then, and I know my intuition was good. I didn't necessarily vote. I set up the process, but I'm so happy they brought you back. Thank you.
Vice President McCray.
Director West, you put us in another precarious situation. How do we lock you and Director Jackson up together
In the same room.
so that we can keep that flow of energy that you bring to the job and all your dedication? I mean, working as the chair of the Finance Committee has been a pleasure because, as everyone has said, you answer the questions and you're very transparent. And it's been great to see that where we were 8 years ago, now to where we are today. And that's a testament to your dedication and understanding of finance and how the city should be operated. And we talked to you and Director Jackson, but we also must give thanks to the mayor who was able to go out and find you to convince you to be a part of his team so that we as citizens can benefit from your knowledge and from your expertise and from your dedication, which gives us the security to know that we've been in good hands for all this time. And we hate to see you go. We know that, there comes a time in everyone's life where we must move on to the next endeavor or the next challenge that we have. But somehow I'm going to talk to some geneticist or something so we can clone you and keep some of that knowledge bottled up here so that Plainfield can continue to see the light that's at the end of this tunnel that we're traveling through, to keep the city moving forward. And you and Director Jackson have been a very integral part of seeing that through. And we're going to miss you. And I just say, for the time we've worked together, it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Council Vice President. Director West, my heart is breaking as we speak. You're a wealth of knowledge. I'm telling you, I don't know how we're going to do it. We're going to have to do it, but we're going to miss you. I can recall on several occasions, and I call it the Ron West shuffle, when I would run up to you while you were walking, whether it be outside City Hall or in the hallway, and you never stop walking. You just answer the question and keep it moving. So, what can you say? My colleagues have put it out there and made it very clear that you are and were a big asset to the administration, to the city. We are proud to say that you were here. I wish you all the best in all, in your future endeavors. And again, we will miss you, sir. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you, council colleagues, for your questions. I'm pretty sure we have no doubt in our mind that Mr. West answered them spot on, like he always does. That being said, Chairwoman Bright, did he answer all your questions?
Council President, yes, he did, except for one. And Director
He
West-
missed one? He missed one?
He missed one.
He did?
I'll ask it real
Wow.
quickly, but before I do, I just want to say that since I served on the CBAC, you have been so supportive of the CBAC team. You answer all of our questions. You never make us feel like the questions are insignificant or that the answer is obvious. You're very patient with the CBAC members and you offer us a wealth of knowledge. And I appreciate that. I thank you for that. The one question that you missed was on the Department of Purchasing. And we just wanted to know, it was one of the goals.
I
What
got
is
it.
the
That's because it's on a
strategy?
different page. Got it.
Okay.
What is the strategy to increase minority participation in city projects across all departments? The answer to that is it's something we've been working on, but it really requires us to build a database of minority vendors that provide products and services of value. So we haven't established a formal goal yet in terms of numbers of minority vendors we're going to do business with, because we don't know what that number look like. I mean, how many are out there that can sell paper products, pens, the full gamut of stationery or technology supplies. So the intent is to make sure that before I ask for a specific objective, we know what we're looking at in the way of opportunities.
Okay, thank you. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairwoman
You're welcome.
Bright, and for all the participation of the CBAC committee. Again, as I stated earlier in our meeting, we appreciate all that you have contributed to these hearings as they continue to go on. And now we are up at the part of our budget deliberations where the citizens of Plainfield can participate. A total of 30 minutes have been allocated for public comments. If you wish to be heard, please hit the hand icon to be recognized and you will be unmuted. Once you're unmuted, please give your name and address for the record. Each speaker will be given a total amount of 3 minutes. The floor is now open.
Hi, everyone.
Good evening, Mary Burwinkle. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, everybody. 1785 Sleepy Hollow Lane. Thank you so much. And what I would like to say is, for someone like me, nirvana is 0 audit findings, and Ron West made that happen. So I just want to say thank you so much. And I understand you have to retire, but I wish you weren't. So thanks so much. And thanks everybody for all your public service, because I complain about you guys all the time, but it's not easy and I know it. So thank you.
Is there anyone else for public comment? Going once, going twice. Motion to close public comment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Public comment is now closed. Thank you all for your participation on this evening. Thank you, Director West. Thank you, Director Brown. And thank you, Director Jackson. Colleagues, motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Second.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Take care. Take care.